A few incidents at the controversial Gaza Humanitarian Foundation aid sites as international criticism mounts over the US-backed, Israeli-approved operation. The GHF began distributing aid on May the 26th through 4 private hubs in Gaza, limiting the amount of UN aid allowed into the region. Since then, dozens of Palestinians have been killed and injured while attempting to access food, prompting global outrage. Responding to a reporter from China's state broadcaster CCTV, Danon acknowledged the casualties but blamed Hamas, claiming the militant group was inflating numbers to deter aid shelters. Here is what he had to say.
Unfortunately, there were a few incidents, but I can tell you one thing for sure: the numbers that were reported by Hamas were not true, were not correct. They were lies. They tried to create the impression that it's not safe and people should not go there, instead of actually showing the real fact.
However, independent reports from the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs have confirmed the deaths of hundreds of civilians near the GHF aid hubs in the past month. Many were shot while approaching aid trucks or standing in chaotic lines for food. Speaking to the press, UN Secretary-General's spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said the GHF fails to meet basic humanitarian standards, including impartiality, independence and safety. This is what he said.
Is that the operation, the food distribution operation run by the GHF, doesn't meet the standards of the basic standards of impartiality, of independence, of safety for recipients. And we're saying, let the UN do its work and let others do their work. We're open to others doing it with us. We can't do it alone. All we ask is that others who want to set up humanitarian operations do it in a way that is safe and sustainable.
Well, rights groups have dubbed the GHF sites death traps, calling for their suspension and the full restoration of UN-led aid efforts. As tensions rise and humanitarian conditions reportedly worsen, calls grow for international oversight over all aid efforts in Gaza. Nina, thank you for sticking with us. There are a couple of points, of course, to address here. First, acknowledgement from Israel that there have been incidents around these aid sites. And secondly, a call for the GHF to stop being the ones that are supplying aid. Of course, US-backed, US and Israel. That alliance is clear. We've spoken about it already. Is there a responsibility for Israel in this situation, given the fact that there have been incidents reported, there have been deaths reported, and the UN and over 100 other charities and NGOs are saying that this isn't fit for purpose? Is there another option, and what could Israel do to support that in the face of a potential humanitarian crisis?
So Israel is doing everything in its power not to harm civilians in Gaza. But unfortunately, Hamas terrorist organization is just going through this population without wearing any uniforms and causing disturbance when it comes to the distribution of humanitarian aid to the Gazan population. Not only that, there are some visuals coming from Gaza where we can see Hamas terrorists taking trucks with humanitarian aid for their own purposes without distributing it to their own population. It is very difficult to stabilize the situation in Gaza, as many terrorist organizations are operating within the population. There is, of course, a great assistance of private firms when it comes to the distribution of food. But we have to understand that the situation right now in Gaza is quite chaotic. Hamas is being weakening very much in Gaza, as there is a significant intensification of combat there. And Israel is doing everything in its power not to harm any civilians. Of course, there are unfortunate events that are occurring in Gaza, but the main responsible element that is bringing to these unfortunate events is, of course, Hamas terrorist organization. We have to look very carefully when different informations are coming from Gaza, because when we are receiving kinds of data coming from there, we have to understand that Hamas